Thanks, Kai. So we've been talking for years about big data and companies analyzing big data, and now I think we're moving on from understanding big data and looking at the predictive trends, predictive analysis that big data supplies companies. And companies are using that data not only to make business decisions for their consumers externally, but also to make decisions about their people strategy internally. So if you want to go to the first slide. So we're leaving data points everywhere. Every place we go, every purchase we make, every tweet, every Facebook post, every Facebook photo, every BuzzFeed personality quiz that we take, everywhere we go, we're leaving data points, millions of them. And data abundance is absolutely everywhere. It's personalized and it's unbiased. And companies aren't just social and on the social platforms with us, they're listening to us and they're analyzing and they're building algorithms. And not only that, but 87% of the world is mobile ready right now. So we're doing this everywhere we go. So the next slide is this is what I like to think of as the Moneyball question. So it's the Hippo versus the Geek. So there's a struggle going on right now in a lot of organizations, and the struggle is between these two entities. Hippos, otherwise known as the highest paid person's opinion, they're the person in the room that they use their experience, they follow their gut, and hippos have really big guts, right? So they know it because they know it. They're the ones who often have the final say, and they just say, it's the person that says, I'll know it when I see it, and they just make the decision using their experience. The geek is the opposite of the hippo. They know it, they know the answer because they ran an algorithm, right? So geeks often terrify the hippos because they're full of numbers and algorithms and things that aren't normal in normal business conversation. So it's a change of thinking. And if you think about that famous scene in Moneyball, and if you haven't seen the movie, that you can see this clip on YouTube, it's where all the baseball scouts were in the room and they were talking about what makes a strong baseball player. And those are the guys that are the hippos, the guys that go with their gut, and they have experience, but they don't have the data points. So the next slide talks about a pretty interesting study that was put together by a group of very smart people in Minnesota. They did a paper. They wanted to know which group, the hippos or the geeks, so the algorithm or the experts, were more accurate when they were predicting different situation outcomes. And the findings were pretty dramatic. So 48% of the situations, it was a toss-up between who was more accurate, the hippos or the experts, versus the algorithm. In 63% of the situations, the algorithm was more accurate, and only 6% of the situations was the expert more accurate. So it really, if you think about that for a minute, it really makes sense that companies who adopt data-driven decisions and predictive analytics achieve higher productivity. So companies are starting to use this indexing of all of our data points to create these super profiles. And marketing departments have been doing this for some time now, and they're getting the predictive marketing campaigns on their consumers. But right now, HR departments are really ready to start looking at these points, these data points, to identify things like candidates from underpopulated or underrepresented groups, HR recruitment strategies, retention and engagement strategies. And then on the next slide, so we can talk about this case. So this describes, you'll see the Target and Evolve logos there. So there was a study a piece in the 2012 in New York Times. It's about how companies lose their secrets, and they highlight Target's challenge. So Target had a challenge, and the challenge was that they knew that pregnant women were it was a demographic they wanted to go after because they had strong spending power, and they were loyal. They had brand loyalty. So they really wanted to figure out how to market first to pregnant women. And to do that, they had to figure out, well, how do we know when somebody's pregnant before we can start sending them targeted marketing? And they decided the best way to do that was to look at the data. They had data points of what people were buying and what shoppers purchased. So they ran some algorithms, and they were able to, all of a sudden, newly pregnant women who, may not have told anyone they were pregnant, started to get pregnant ads targeting new mothers and pregnancy to them and from Target, and they couldn't figure out why. And Target came out and said, well, we analyzed your purchases, and we realized that when women start purchasing cosmetics and toiletries that are unscented, they are quite often pregnant. So that's an example of predictive analytics.
Especially when it comes right after a pregnancy test purchase.
So the other Evolve is using this in different ways, where they're looking at performance analytics, and they're realizing that employees who live closer to the office are stronger performers in non-exempt situations, and as well as employees who have applied for a job with a non-traditional browser. They also make better employees, more productive employees. So another way predictive analytics answers a simple recruiting question. And this recruiting question is, when do most employees leave their jobs, right? And this is the answer to this is going to drive recruiting strategies, retention strategies, sourcing strategies, outreach campaigns, and who knows what else. So Intello they're a company that presented at the conference, and they've kept hearing from their clients, that the best time to source strong candidates was at the 4-year mark. And it's common knowledge. Everybody knows that 4 years, that's a sweet spot. At year 1, nobody's really leaving their current job. And at year 10, once somebody's there for 10 years, they're never going to leave. They're going to be there forever, right? So it's common knowledge, the 4-year mark, except it's wrong. So Intello actually said, well, let's look at millions of resumes. We've got millions of resumes. Let's look at the patterns and figure out when employees actually do leave their companies. And they just published this study on their blog. The results shatter the common knowledge. If you look, you'll see the spikes here are at the anniversary dates, not the 4-year mark. The 4-year spike, it gets lower and lower and lower. So most people leave their jobs on their first anniversary date. And the results here change the way we're thinking. They change the way recruiting strategies are going to be built. They change the way retention strategies are going to be built. And I would argue that there might be something to the way most companies do performance appraisals, because most people are leaving on their anniversary date. So the bottom line here is that the number one theme of the HR Technology Conference is really taking big data and using it to create business, predictive analytics to create better business decisions that are going to help us recruit, retain, and engage our employees, not just on the external side, but on the internal side too.